What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Real Deal Podcast. I'm Kevin,
And I'm Mike.
and we
And
just want to
Kevin is a
welcome you.
little sleepy.
We just want to
Kevin's a little-
welcome you to episode number 8, I believe it is. And tonight we're going to be talking about tactics and locations, and how do you explore new waters, things of that nature. And Mike is going to be taking the lead and asking some questions and coming up with some thoughtful conversation. We hope.
we hope.
But anyway, if you're new to the podcast, welcome. Thank you for listening to our Boom Squad members listening live. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for what you do to support Palmetto Cats YouTube channel. We hope you enjoyed tonight's show. Also, if you're wanting to support the Palmetto Cats YouTube channel or the Real Deal Fishing Podcast, check out www.shoppalmettocats.com. That's SHOP palmettocats.com. And you can pick up some merch, check out calendar events, look at the community calendar, see what's going on, even register for some cool things going on. So here we go, Mike. You ready?
I'm ready. Now, my only comment about the website is you will look good with that logo on your chest,
Mhm.
on your back, or on your
On
leg,
your head.
whichever it is. Whichever it is. It's an amazing logo. I particularly love the black and white.
You know what we need to do, Mike? We need to
What's
put
that?
your logo on some stuff on there.
I've been thinking about that, and I even looked at it, and then I'm just like, here we go again. I don't know what I'm doing. So feel like other people that I deal with all day long. It's like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. You need to help me. And at some point, I just feel bad asking for like that much help all the time.
Yeah,
But we'll
well,
we'll
we'll
talk
we'll
about
figure
it.
that out.
Yeah,
We'll
we'll
figure it
figure
out.
it out. There's no rush. There's no rush.
So Mike is in the lead tonight, so I'm gonna put him in the driver's seat. Mike,
Oh, all
how does it
right.
feel to be on that side?
I definitely have a much better beard over here, and my watch looks like it's on the wrong wrist, but I'm feeling good. No, I'm just talking about the backdrop here, or whatever that's
Mhm.
called. Again, technical terms, not so good at that.
And I see
But
you got a new haircut, and so do other
yes,
people, man.
yes, it's not looking really good right now. I had to give Leia a bath earlier, and definitely whenever you bathe a toddler, you wear half that water.
Hmm.
So they like to splash. That's what makes it fun. But
Mhm.
we got to sit there. She talked a little bit about the water and how she wants to go fishing again soon. So that was really, really awesome. Very excited about that. And the whole time I'm kind of not there. I'm here thinking about our topics. Now, Kevin said he's put me in the driver's seat. Well, that's just
Mhm.
because I had an idea that just stuck in my head from our last conversation. I believe it was our last conversation. And
Could
Kevin had
be.
said that his 2022 focus
Mm.
is going to be he is going to focus more of his time on the Cooper River. Now,
That's right.
this is a very interesting river, and there's aspects to it that I don't understand. So that's when I thought, hey, yes, Kevin has to have had experience fishing it, having lived there.
Mhm.
But I want to talk about it. I want to talk about it because everybody really doesn't realize how little I truly know. And here's what I'll say.
Wait till they hear
I,
me.
I won't say that I know a lot, but I will say that I know a little, and what little I do know, I feel I know a lot about it.
True.
So there's a lot here for me to learn. And whether or not other people look at it that way, this is a great opportunity to learn. So here we have Kevin, seasoned angler, having lived in that area most of your life, right, Kevin? I mean, did you go away for
Yeah.
college and
Just a couple years to teach,
a
about
couple
3
of years to
years, and
teach? Yeah.
yeah, and I've been here ever since.
And now Kevin is the big 4-0.
Mm.
So that means he almost has 40 years of experience in these waters. So let's talk about that. We already set our location, the Cooper River.
Right.
Now, one of my friends told me, you got to know your river. And I flat out told him, I don't know my river, which is why I'm paying to have somebody teach me. So, uh, you have lived here your whole life, pretty much. Tell us about your experience on the Cooper River.
All right. So before YouTube, most of what I've done on the Cooper River has consisted of two things. From a very young age to even now, my dad and I would go pan fishing, I guess you would call it. Now, we would catch species like brim, red breast, shellcracker, what we called stump knocker. Other people call them green sunfish, even
Ooh.
bass sometimes.
What was that nickname?
Stump knocker.
Stump knocker. Oh, that's awesome.
Stump knocker is like the best flathead bait. I think they're just a really robust fish. It's not really a green sunfish. It's a spotted sunfish. That's what it is. A spotted
Oh, okay.
sunfish. Yeah. A spotted sunfish is a stump knocker, and they only get about hand size, is as big as they
Mhm.
get,
Okay.
and that's it. But they're robust and tough little suckers, man. They're really tough.
So
But
we should see you then fishing for some of these in the next year as your bait. You'll
yeah, I
catch them
mean,
for bait.
well, that's kind of like a bycatch. Anytime you're fishing for panfish with worms and uh, stump knocker would be a good YouTube name.
Oh yeah.
uh, But anytime you're fishing for shellcracker or brim, you're fishing around some structure, a lot of stumps, and that's where they kind of get their nickname from. Is they hang out around these stumps or pylons, and they knock the stumps. You got to knock the stumps to get them out, I guess. But they're feisty little creatures, man, and um, like I said, their technical term is a spotted sunfish. They're a brown little sunfish with black spots on them, black dots. Not even spots, just dots. And it's almost in a pattern, almost like it's drawn on. But anyway, so we've done that up and down the Cooper River, mainly in the rice field section, back in where the old plantations were, where they used to grow rice and other crops. And then we also, we'd fish for catfish every once in a while. Most of the catfishing we did was on trot lines. So, those of you who don't know what a trot line is, it's basically a long string with hooks on it. And you would take your bait and put on the hook, and they're about 4 to 5 feet apart, 3 to 5 feet apart. And you would drop them in the river overnight, and then you come back the next day and you pick up the line and see what you got. And we catch some monsters on those things. But those were food fish. That's not for sport or anything like that. And really, you can't even do that much anymore. The other thing I did when I started getting older and I got my own boat, especially in college, is I would go down the saltwater side of the Cooper River, closer to where the ocean is, and we would fish for stingray or sharks or bluefish or whatever would get to just bottom fishing, basically, whatever we could get to bite. And it didn't matter what it was. If it pulled, we liked it. So that's kind of been my experience up until YouTube. My biggest catfish, my biggest flathead ever, and probably my biggest catfish ever came on the Cooper River before YouTube. I believe, um, and I can't prove it, but I believe I caught a 50 to a 60 pound flathead in the Cooper River. Didn't even know it was called a flathead at that time. It was just a big yellow submarine. And I remember I was on a 14-foot John boat with a trolling motor on the front and a 9.9 Evinrude on the back. And we were just kicking around in what's called Bushy Park. It's a saltwater side of the Cooper River right before you get to the United States Navy base and where they house nuclear submarines. So we're sitting there fishing and just boom, it hits and it's pulling me around all over the little inlet there. And back then I didn't know anything about it, so I kept it and we ate it. But it was probably around a 50 or 60 pound flathead, and I wish I could do that again, which kind of inspired me to come up with this goal for next year.
Okay, you caught sharks?
Hmm.
What
So you
kind of
catch,
shark?
well, most of the time, most of the sharks that we caught were sand sharks or dogfish, is what you would call them. I don't like the term dogfish because it doesn't sound like a shark and doesn't sound as
Yeah.
cool. So we call them sand sharks. But if you look up a um, sand shark doesn't exist. There's no such thing as a sand shark. They're dogfish, but that's what we always called them. Um, we have tiger sharks. We have all kinds of different bull sharks are the most common sharks, but just little sand sharks, pretty much.
Wow.
Mhm.
I'm starting not to like your new goal, man. There's a lot of teeth involved in this deal.
Well,
Well, I
unlike
guess
unlike
only in that area, right? Closer
yeah,
to that
I
area.
mean,
Yeah.
unlike the porpoises that come up and the manatee and the redfish and stuff like that, the sharks, I really don't catch them too far up in the brackish water. I haven't caught a shark in a long time. Actually, sorry, excuse me. I haven't caught one in a long time.
I've never seen a shark while fishing, but I only fished in the ocean one time. I don't even like to put my feet in it. Mainly because Jaws was one of my favorite movies growing up. I'm not living that out.
You must have some
Okay.
stinky feet.
Yeah, yeah, mm, that's probably another show topic.
Yeah, let's move on. Move on.
Childhood fishing issues.
But
So,
and one of the reasons I want to look at that river is because so if you split the and really the unexplored part is way bigger than the explored part of the river. Where I catfish mostly on live streams is the part that I grew up in. The other half where it starts to become brackish, there's all different kinds of species of fish in there, including catfish. And catfish are they're really adaptable, like more adaptable than I think people give them credit for. Because I've caught catfish, like freshwater type catfish, flatheads or blue cats, down where I would consider the water mostly salt water. So they do travel in and out of these areas, this brackish water to saltwater area, and then vice versa. There's other fish. So in one of my last videos, we caught a red drum, which is a saltwater fish, but we caught him way up in the river, in the brackish water side. So just to go down in that end of the river, and you just don't know what you're going to catch. But I'm still kind of freshwater fishing, and which doesn't kind of come with the cost of saltwater fishing. Saltwater
mm,
fishing is so expensive.
so you hadn't been there in a while. Now you have all of your experience and all that you've learned and knowledge you've accumulated throughout your YouTube journey.
Hmm.
Going back to that same area that we're just talking about right now, that brackish area, do you think that you will first start off using tactics and rigging like you used in the past, or do you think that you're going to work in some of your new knowledge as well?
Oh yeah, I all I ever used back in the day was Carolina rig. That's it. Egg sinker on some heavy line to a leader to heavier line to a hook. I mean, that's it. Hook, line, and sinker with a swivel. And I honestly think that's still the best way to do it. So, with the addition of the Santee rig, it may help me with some species. But, you know, I don't see changing many things up.
Mhm.
I think the Carolina rig will probably be what I focus on the most.
Okay, now you were discussing how you had fished the river over several years of your life. How young do you remember being out on the river?
Uh, put it this way. My dad had a 14-foot Eldo Sport, and it's basically a fiberglass shoe looking of a boat. I mean, it's like a big I don't even know what you call it. Not an oval, like even narrower than an oval. It had a round bow. It was front stick steer. The boat was maybe 3 feet wide. Enough for you to stand up and kind of scoot around the seat to get back to the back. It had a live well in the middle, a front seat and a back seat. And I remember being able to, with my life jacket on, getting hot and not wanting to fish anymore, being able to slide in between the live well and the side of the boat, which is probably, I don't know, a foot and a half gap. And you've seen me in videos. There's no way that I could fit in a foot and a half of any kind of gap anymore. So I imagine I was, 3 to 5 years old was my earliest
Wow,
memory fishing on the river.
that's pretty awesome.
And that was shell cracker fishing. And, dad would get upset because I want to go and he'd just throw a pack of crackers in a RC Cola at me.
I miss RC Cola too.
Mm.
It's amazing to me when you think back, because that's the part of the journey. Like right now, my kids are that age, and I hope that they remember some of this, and I know that I'm never going to forget it.
Mhm.
And I remember a little bit when I was that young too, and to look back on it, it seems like it's so far away, but yet the imagery and the feeling is right there.
Mhm.
So I think when you go back to the location and you start fishing like that, maybe some of that's going to hit you too. That'll
Mhm.
be
Well,
pretty awesome.
now the places that I remember going are where I fish now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we really didn't go downriver too much,
Hmm.
because we were pan fishing, and the farther you go down, the less panfish are down there. So we never really mess with downriver a little that much. So that's kind of why I want to focus on it. I want to learn what's on the bottom and find out what's down there and find out you know what I can catch,
Yeah.
and where.
Now we had discussed in previous episodes and off air as well how you wanted to upgrade your fish finder,
Mm.
depth finder, your system.
Mhm.
Do you think that you'll try to do that before you start working the river? Because I would have to think that would be a great advantage to learning your undiscovered
Yeah.
area,
Well, I mean,
your area.
I'd love to.
Yeah.
I don't see it happening because I'm
Okay.
trying to,
And I don't
trying
even
to
know
do.
how much those things cost.
Yeah, I don't have thousands.
There's a comma in there. Okay.
Yeah, well, to get a
At
really
least.
good one,
Yeah.
But I'm actually boatless right now. I dropped my boat off yesterday to Tune Time in Sumter, South Carolina, and they're making me seat covers and a motor cover, and they're also putting a full enclosure on there. So I can do some camping on the boat, and I can stay warm on the boat, and weather won't be as big of a deal. And of course, wind's always a thing, but uh,
Yeah.
even a little bit of wind when it's cold sucks. So I'll be able to fish a lot.
I remember when you did your 24-hour live that you put the tarp up to break the wind,
Mhm.
and it looked like that was a great thing. Um, you said seat covers?
Yeah, well, just to protect the seats, the boat comes with like a boat cover,
Uh-huh.
and to put it on every weekend, and it takes a good half hour to put that boat. Well, maybe not a half
Yeah.
hour, but it feels like it. And so just to be able to have the seat covers there and just throw them on, and they're fine, and that'll be a game changer.
Yep. Now this enclosure, is this something that is like a permanent thing, or is it something that is like something you can open, or
So think of it as
what is it?
it's a bimini top, um, with plastic. So it's got a plastic zip
Like,
on additions, and it kind
uh-huh.
of drapes down like a shower curtain, but
Okay.
then it's gonna button to the side of the boat.
Okay.
And so it'll have a door too, a zipper door to go in and out. So
All right.
basically, it'll be a tent on the boat. And the only unfortunate thing is that I'm gonna have to unzip the panels and zip them back on every trip, um, just because I don't have a boat slip. I
Yeah.
can't leave my boat in the water.
Yeah. And then you probably won't use that during the warmer months at all?
No, no. And so the other good thing is that I'm keeping the old Bimini top, so I can just zip the whole thing off and then put the new one on there and not have to worry about it. So it should be really cool.
Oh.
hmm
Oh, that is awesome.
So
I
basically,
thought it was like an attachment to everything, like it converted it. It's its own.
well, it does, but I won't have the zippers there. I'm not exactly sure. Of course,
Mhm.
I'll do a full rundown when I get it,
Great,
and I'll
great.
show everybody.
Well, I don't know about your area, but we're starting to get a little cold here in Iowa.
Yeah, it's getting a
Well,
little chilly. Not too
I think
bad,
this is
but
good timing.
yeah.
So we discussed the undiscovered country.
hmm
Now, in the pre-show, you said, and I think you might have just said it a little while ago here too, that you have more undiscovered portion of the river than what you had been on and what you do know.
hmm Yeah.
So
So
how much space are we talking about here?
I mean miles.
Miles. Okay.
Miles of river. Um, because this river is very narrow. It's not wide across, but it snakes back and forth for a long time. Um, and then eventually you'll get to the naval weapon station, or what used to be the naval weapon station. Now it's a nuclear school, a Navy nuclear school, and they still have the gunboats there. So actually, there's side note. There's a stretch of the river that's about a half a mile to three-quarters of a mile long, and it goes around the bend. So that's why there's two boats. There's a sign that says you're reaching a militarized zone. Do not change your speed. Don't slow down. Basically, is what it says. So when you hit this area, there's a big rubber boat with a 50 caliber gun on the front and a man at the turret. And the boat, like when you go by, the boat turns and follows you with the gun pointed at you until you get past it. And then when you get around the other side of the corner, you see the other boat and he locks on you and watches you until you come out, because there's a nuclear submarine sitting right there in the harbor. So that's pretty intense. I got a story where my buddy broke down in that zone,
Oh
and
no.
they flew up on him so fast he thought he was dead. And I was like, dude, well, they would like just shoot you. But he came up to him, and they towed him out of the militarized zone right to the border of it, and then left him and then went back. They're like, "Where'd you come from?" He said, "That way." And so they towed him that way, and he ended up he started paddling. Luckily, somebody found him and towed him back to the ramp. But anyway, even after you get past that zone, obviously it's super deep there, right? Because they have submarines there.
Sure.
And that's kind of where I get excited, is like, this deep water, 80, 100 feet. 200
Oh,
feet. I don't
wow.
even know. So then that goes out to Patriots Point, and that's where we have the Yorktown, these old battleships, and that they turn into a museum. They're stationed there. But then that's probably the limit of where I want to go, because then you get out into that rough water. Um, you're really not. There's no fresh water left. Like you are in the ocean, or basically in the ocean. So that's probably as far as I go. But even that, I mean, that's 10, 15 miles downriver. Um, so there's a lot of undiscovered holes and back creek. I mean, that's just the main river, Michael. I'm not even talking about these back creeks. Like, these back creeks snake in and out, off and on the river. I can't imagine what kind of giants are hiding in those back creeks. So anyway, yeah. So there's tons of and not even just that section, but even the section that I fish in now. There's finder is a huge part of it. However, dropping the boat off and getting back to my point, I just dropped it off, and I'm using my YouTube money for that, and try not to dip into house money. So it just depends on how well videos do and things like that. So you know, we'll see. I don't know. I don't know. It just depends on what the YouTube check says and all of that. So I don't think that I'll have it before the new year, but that doesn't mean I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna go ahead and deal with what I got with him
Yeah.
with between Navionics and my depth finder. I should be fine. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? But I understand it would be cool to have that side scan on there and be able to map it and see fish hanging out over there. But one step at a time. I'll be warm.
That's a good step. That's a step in the right direction for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. So this is exciting. I mean, it's one thing to be your friend, but it's another thing to remind to remind you of that I am a fan of the channel. I am a subscriber of the channel. So it sounds like there's some awesome content coming in the future.
Let's hope.
Let's hope. Yeah, and at the very least, it'll be a gallant effort
Yeah.
and just something exciting, something different. I know a lot of people are continually looking for that. Hey, let's do this, or hey, let's try that, but
And I'm
that's
not
that's
afraid.
something I never grew up to do. We didn't do
And
that.
I'm not afraid to post a video where I don't catch monster fish.
Yeah.
I think there's so many channels out there um, that catch monster fish, big fish, pretty often, but they're not blowing up. You know what I'm saying? I don't think,
Mhm.
and it's just my little opinion, I guess. I don't think that people really care so much about how big the fish. It's how much you entertain them or what kind of information you give them. And although I don't know as much as I probably should know, um, I do believe that you know when I'm learning it, I'm sharing what I'm learning at the time that I'm learning it. So I think that people respect that. Some people respect that, and I don't mind making videos like that.
Well, I definitely agree with your assessment. I would rather learn, and to me, any fish over 10 pounds is an awesome moment. And I don't. I know there's some people that are just out there for the biggest of the biggest fish, and I like watching that too,
Yeah, I'd
for
love to catch
sure. Oh,
them.
I I find myself wondering what is in the water that I'm fishing. Maybe I'm 20 feet away from it. Maybe it just doesn't want what I have,
Mhm,
but it could be in there. I mean, we definitely have some big flatheads here and there, but
mhm.
I also think that those guys just, they're not where I'm fishing, or
Right.
if they are, they're like, yeah, I'm not gonna bother with what this guy's got. But the the opportunity to learn, like I said
Mhm.
in the intro, that means a lot to me because, like I was saying right there, you're talking about different waters, giving this a
Mhm.
try, and it may not be that far from where some of your videos have been,
Mhm.
where some of your live streams have been, and as a fan, I'm along for the ride. It doesn't mean I don't need a new location. I'm along for the ride no matter what. That's the kind of
Yeah.
fan that I am. But
And I think what it
definitely
takes
it's
is
interesting because then I can learn from what you're doing.
yeah. I think sometimes that big fish gets people in, they come in and like, "Ooh, wow, that's a nice fish." And then they get in and I believe then it's your job to keep them there, or something quirky, whether it's a podcast like this or whether it's a monster hunt tournament that we're doing this weekend. You got to get them with the hook. And then once you get them in, like dropping your baits down a 70-foot hole.
Yeah.
You get them in and then they got to like you to stay. But
I
yeah, I'm looking forward to learning stuff that I've learned from other guys and girls on YouTube about fishing new waters, looking for structure on the ground, looking on Navia, using the tools that are available. And although, a nice big graph with side scan on it, touch screen would be mighty fine. Um, you know, I'm more blessed than some with what I already have. So I'm going to use the tools that I already have at my disposal, which are, a subscription to Navionics, which will teach me those, where the contours of the bottom are, where the deep holes are, where the shallow areas are, what creeks are even worth going up in. Um, Finding bait, on my graph is going to be huge. There's not a lot of bait in our waters as far as bait fish are concerned.
hmm.
We have the bluegill and the threadfin shad from time to time, but we don't have the big skipjack or the big gizzard shad that some rivers have. So finding bait is going to be important, and maybe down in the saltwater, some of those bait fish that normally are saltwater bait fish, I'll be able to have access to. Who knows? Who knows what I'll find?
Well, that excites me because I'll probably be seeing fish that I don't normally see.
Mm-hmm. And that's another cool part too.
Yeah. Yeah. I got to tell you, I have learned that from Lauren. I know I've said it before, but
She's so cute.
this is not how I was taught to fish when I was younger.
Hmm.
So it's so exciting, and YouTube has brought out a lot more of that with all the diverse anglers that are out there in all the different areas fishing for different fish in different ways, and then fishing for the same fish in different ways. So I'm just overwhelmed. It's a lot of data, and I'm trying to slowly take pieces of it and put it to work myself. I
Hmm.
was talking with my sister Trish tonight. She's going to fish on the second second or third biggest piece of water that we have in Iowa this weekend. And so she asked for some advice, not from me. She went to a much better source, and she got some advice. And then she called me just to go over a few of the details to make sure she was understanding it correctly. And thankfully, I did know the terminology and I did understand what the advice was pointing to. And I had mentioned to her, I said, "Hey, I got some of those big bobbers, and I rigged up two 9.5 foot long rods with those big bobbers, and I threw big old chunks of sunfish, and I went to fish with my brother at the pond that he had recently found, and I was fishing the other side of the pond with those bobbers because I guess these things sure can sail through the air, and I never knew it until
Really?
I threw it. I was like, I bet I can hit the other bank.
Hmm.
So I gave it all that I could, and sure enough, I was 3 feet off that other bank, and I'm like, "Whoa, this is something new." And it's super. I mean, it's a bobber. Who doesn't love watching that bobber get
Right.
hammered and go under the water?
Right.
Well, this is a big, gigantic catfish bobber
Hmm.
on a big old huge heavy action catfish rod, but it's on the other side of the pond now. So I'm looking like over there and the sun glares in the way and I'm all excited. But then I realized I'm like, hey, I'm doing something different. And Lauren even said it too. She's like, you never fish this way, Dad. And I'm like, you're right. And then she accused me of stealing Spencer's bobbers and his fishing poles, and that I needed to return them. And so, I show her the receipt, so that way I'm cleared of these accusations. But they're in too. She is fishing for panfish or game fish, whatever hits
Hmm.
that bobber with a minnow on it.
Hmm.
And she hadn't fished that way until this year. And my brother was just like, well, if that's the way they catch them here, let's give it a try, and
Hmm.
it's so exciting. And there's something I don't really see people live fish that way. I think you did one. Did you do a video or did you do a live stream? You and Anna fishing for shellcracker.
Oh yeah, we did. I called it flipping,
Yeah.
and so we were fishing for shellcracker. Actually, we were fishing for brim that day, but it's tough to brim fish and go live at the same time.
Yeah. But I want more of it. I'm demanding. I'm selfish viewer just like anybody else. But now that I got a little taste of
Mhm,
fishing different ways, I'm like, oh my gosh, now I know what they're talking about. And
mhm.
and even though I seem like I'm calm and collected, I'm telling you, I'd rather be out there right now in the dark trying to catch a fish some way. But
Well, like hindsight is always 2020. You always look at the situations you're in, and you think about how could I have done something different, or how could I have made something better. And part of me, even though I really enjoy this, part of me wonders if I shouldn't have focused on the panfish side and making a YouTube channel out of that. Would it have worked out? I don't know. Who knows? Maybe as well as this one's working out. Is there a panfish community out there? Yeah, there is. We see that SK's Crappie Adventures. He's got thousands of people that follow him. But I'm always up for a challenge and I'm hard headed. So I went for the catfish because they pull hard and it's more exciting when you get a big one on. But I just told Anna, I said, some things I would change differently, and maybe naming the channel Palmetto Cats would be one of those things, so I can have more of a broad spectrum. That way the guys and girls that come to subscribe to watch catfishing aren't disappointed when I'm not catfishing. Um, and you will have a fair amount of that, even though most people like who just like watching what I do, um, won't be affected by it. But then those people who, yeah, that's bait. What are we worrying about bait for? Would have an issue with it. But I think you could also when we're talking about these new waters and fishing tactics, discover new big fish to catch, then maybe those people who are looking for those big catfish would be more interested in that and and like seeing those types of fish being caught. Like those reds, that red drum man pulls like a dump truck. I mean, it's such a small fish, but it's so powerful. And I guess being a saltwater fish, they have to do that. So um I know I'm rambling, but that's kind of my
oh,
mindset
I'm
behind it.
Oh, I'm loving it. And this red drum, you may encounter that then in your
Oh
journeys of
yeah. Hmm.
2022?
Yeah,
All
because I mean we
right.
were fishing for catfish, and red drum hit a little piece of mullet. I mean, people come to Charleston just to fish for those redfish. They come down, talk to Elston. He probably knows about redfish from Texas. It's the Gulf of Mexico is a huge place to catch reds. But yeah, people come down here and go on charters just to catch these, big 25 to 40-inch red drum that, squeal line on. And spinning reels are the reels of choice for those types of fish, just because of the line capacity and the um, the durability and all that goes along with that. So, I mean, you've seen them, the saltwater guys, unless they're going for like big tunas or big sharks, they use spinning reels. Um, so,
Yeah, I've still only found about 3 round reels and low profile bait casters that don't hate me. But hey, 3 is a good start. 3's
it's
enough.
something.
It's a
Hmm.
start.
Hmm.
Lauren even told me that the other day too. She's like, "Why do you have that reel? You don't cast it very good." And I'm like, "I know, honey. I know." Yeah. Somebody had mentioned reels there in the
Hmm.
chat in the beginning
Travis.
of the podcast, and I'm like, "Oh, don't get me started." The last time I was insulted, and she was right. This is true. You had getting back to the river and more stuff that I don't know. I we touched upon the fact that it goes out into the ocean.
Hmm.
It's tidal. I'm not gonna make you go through all the information you were telling me in the pregame warm up.
Well,
But
I have it here. I mean, might as well.
well, I'm just wondering how you think you can use that to your advantage, because I do hear some people saying, "Oh, it's high tide right now, and then we're going to struggle, and then it's going to be low tide, and then maybe the bite will come." Now those usually are bank anglers, but you'll be in a boat, so I didn't know if you already have a little bit of your tactics, in your mind, thinking I can do this, I can do that.
I think most of what affects uh, me in a boat for tidal waters, it's just which way the water's moving. So I
Mhm.
take into consideration which way the water's moving will tell me what areas will not be available or might become available because there's either less or more water there. Um, will fish move up into these other areas if there's water there? Because there's more structure there. Maybe that's their breeding grounds, whatever. Also, the tide, the moving water is going to tell me, might have, well, maybe not tell me, but I should be able to figure out what's it bringing in. Is it bringing bait in? Do the bait have a tendency to go out? Do the fish usually feed on an incoming tide or an outgoing tide? Um, those are some things that I consider when looking at tides,
Wow,
because
I didn't even think of that.
tide is associated with current, right? So if you have a incoming or outgoing tide, you have current, which controls the flow. So those are some things to consider. And those moon phases control the tide, the gravitational pull on the earth from the moon. You'll have two high tides one day and two low tides in a day. So you have, basically around 6 hours um, each tide to play around with what you're going to do with a little slack tide in between. And I'm not sure what the timing is on a slack tide, maybe 25, 30 minutes. But even
Hmm.
sometimes the slack tide is good for fishing. I know in the wintertime, I really tore up the catfish on the slack tide. Don't know why, but those are the type things that I'm wanting to learn. Um, it also, unfortunately, the tide, brings that current, and it could bring things like grass or algae or debris, things like that. So, just really focusing on the river, and from January all the way to December next year. Not to say that I won't fish the lake, but
Yeah.
focusing on that river and really writing down whether it's going to be um, pen or paper or Google Sheets or whatever. I'm not sure what I'm going to do, but just taking those notes about water temperature, what was the tide, and most of the stuff you can look up in almanacs, right? Uh, you can look up previous tides, you can look up previous moon phases and things like that. But I want to see it in my language, and I want to see it as it relates to a video I made. So those are the things I'll be focusing on, and it's just not as much. I know this isn't popular right now, but not as much live stream fishing. Um,
Yeah.
because live stream fishing, although it's awesome and it's a way to get people interacting with you, and even as Chunky says, it's a good way to make a little money. Um, you can't really relax and focus when you're live stream fishing. You need to find a spot with fish. You need to cast in there, and you need to catch fish and
Hmm.
entertain a crowd. And if you're trying to focus on moving around, um, and finding new spots, that's not really a good medium to use.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, now here's a question that I didn't throw at you earlier. Is is this an opportunity to get more information from other sources, namely your father? Do you think that he has uh, untapped river data that you two just hadn't talked about because you
Mhm.
hadn't put this emphasis on it?
Because I wasn't interested before, basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm 100% certain that Dad's fished every inch of that river from the dam all the way down to where we were talking about. Um, I remember a time. Now I don't remember catching anything, but I remember this one particular day where we were going below some kind of marker to catch rockfish, which we called that's what stripers are. So we were going to go catch striped bass. I don't ever remember catching them, but I think what I have in my head is where I fish now. Is farther down river than I had ever gone as a kid. So, talking to him about that, where were we when you talked about this? If I wanted to catch red drum, where would I go in our river to find them? Where's a good area you remember, when you were fishing it? Should I use a Cajun popper? Things like that. What bait should I use? You know, that sort of thing. Now, I think somebody made a comment about Justin Johnston using a balloon to catch catfish. And basically, he just took the balloon and used it as a bobber to
Yep.
float a bait. We used to do that with largemouth bass and reds. I do remember that. Basically, you put a big golden shiner under a balloon and you would throw it up next to the reeds in these back creeks, and that shiner would just swim in and around those reeds, and those bass would just shoo whop and just destroy the shiner and take the balloon under. And so maybe trying a little bit of that, trying to get that on camera. That would be pretty cool. Um, Flounder fishing, catching flounder. And I'd love to catch some eater flounder and do a catch and cook on some flounder. Um,
I've
Again,
eaten flounder.
all this is pulling away from the cats part of Palmetto Cats. So I'm not sure how much my subscriber base would like it, but I know that I would love it. And if I love it so much that, maybe I need to think about a change, and I'll make a change. But hopefully everybody will be along with me going on that ride, because there'll be a lot of catfish in there. I mean, like I said, I caught the biggest flathead ever caught down in salt water. So I'm sure that there are tons of catfish down there. And maybe it's even a new species, maybe some kind of saltwater catfish I'll find. I don't know. Who knows?
Makes me think that I'm living in the wrong place.
I can tell you
There's a
are.
lot of opportunity there. There's
No,
a lot of opportunity there.
there's a lot of opportunity where you are too. I mean, you just gotta the ocean in general, Mike, like opens up um a whole avenue of different types of fishing, and you got sheephead down here, you know, using fiddler crabs on a hook to catch sheephead, and they're so hard to catch they come up with their teeth and suck the crab off the hook. And if you miss that one bite, you miss the whole fish. It's like your rod just goes boop, and if you don't set the hook, it's done. You know, you can catch you know, big stingrays. If you've never hooked into a big stingray, it's a fight of your life. It'll bend any catfish rod you got in half and maybe break it. uh, then you got the sharks. You got big kingfish off the piers you can catch. Uh, there's mako sharks out there. I've hooked into a mako shark before. Never got it in, but I hooked onto it. That was the one that got away. Um, but things like that. Things that you don't have anywhere else.
There's another show topic.
The one that got
The
away.
ones that got away.
Yeah.
There's something that I've never done fishing, and for whatever reason, I can't stop talking about it. And I'm annoying myself talking about it. Although I know at some point I'll have the opportunity, I just haven't had it yet.
Mhm.
You mentioned current and
Mhm.
the river. You mentioned tide affecting the current. Do you think that you may run into the opportunity to bump on the Cooper River?
Yeah, that's something I want to try.
I don't know why. I look at bumping rods and I'm like, I wonder what's so different about them. And I watch the guys do it, and I find myself looking for videos
Mhm.
just because the the bite looks kind of subtle. But the next thing you know, the rods are just, rod tip down, and it's right there in their hands. And I'm like, oh, that has to be a feeling like, nothing I've ever felt, because usually my rod is in a rod holder
Mhm.
or it's in a rod holder on a boat.
Mhm.
I don't have my hands on it. So I was,
So bumping is very unique because you're using the current um to your advantage instead of going with it. So um drifting and bumping are similar in that you're traveling downriver using the current as your motivation, your tool to get downriver, right? The thing about bumping is that you're still fighting the current in order to walk that bait back. Now, I have recently discovered that some people anchor in one spot and bump back behind the boat. I didn't know that. I thought that they always, spot locked on a spot and current, and then figured out and then let it go and figure out how fast they were going, and then they would cut that speed in half, and
yeah, that's
basically they would back bottom bounce and walk that bait back. But I saw someone, and I wish I could remember who it was, but they anchored the boat in current, and they took that bait and they just bumped it back. They let the current take it back, take it back, take it back until they were almost halfway spooled, and they would reel it in, and then try it. And they would drop it right back of the boat, and then bump it back, bump it back, bump it back, bump it back. So that's a new one. I've always been hesitant to bump the traditional way, the bottom bouncing in the pontoon boat, because it's such a big boat. It's so easy for something to go wrong, and it's 20 feet long. So where the trolling motor is up at the front of the boat to where I would be in the back of the boat is
Mm.
20 feet. So not that I'm worried about flipping over or anything, just enjoying it and trying not to cause chaos would basically be my only thing. But yeah, that sounds like it'd be fun, and I definitely could try that. Now we've done vertical bumping, and people were doing it this past weekend in the diversion canal, where they just take one rod and they just float with the current and they just keep bouncing it off the bottom, to bouncing the weight. And they do that. I saw one guy catch a fish, and it was probably a pound or two. But they use medium light rods or medium rods, kind of like an Ugly Stick GX2 or lighter. Um,
Oh,
yeah, and so when those eater fish hit, man, it's like, whoa, so fun to fight them. So yeah, I think I've never tried that. I've bumped down the river like that. I've never like back bottom bounced or bumped like you're talking about.
well, we definitely have gone over everything that I had written down on my sheet here,
Mm-hmm.
with the exception of the traditional question of whether you think
Mono or
you'll be
braid.
using mono or braid. Mono or
So I
braid on your river, sir?
I have switched. I have switched to braid,
Yeah.
but the funny thing is I switched to braid for dragging, and now I'm not going to be dragging as much. But I'm not wasting the money. I'll be using the braid until it's worn out. But
Oh yeah, for sure.
I
I
switched to
actually
braid.
I put braid on the big rods with the
Mhm,
big catfish bobbers just to give
mhm,
it a try. I'm like, well, this stuff's sitting here doing nothing. I might as well give it a try. And
mhm,
actually, having fished with some braided line on the guided adventures, uh, I didn't mind it because it was
mhm,
thicker. I remember when we first started hearing about braided line, it was very thin and it would cut my fingers. And I'm like, oh,
mhm,
I don't like that. I was like, the mono might melt some of my skin, but it
hmm,
doesn't like slice right through my, layers of my skin.
mhm.
And, but the bigger, thicker braid, I don't have that kind of a feeling with it. So I
Yeah,
was like,
it can
well,
still
I'll put
cut
it on
you,
thicker
but
wrist.
yeah, it's a little better. I guess the only real thing I don't like about braid is that it floats. Um,
Yep.
so if you have any slack in your line, it's gonna float, and basically it's just an aesthetic thing. It looks messy.
Yep. Yep.
But yeah,
I
I got the
noticed that
braid.
with my bobbers.
I got the braid basically when I get snagged up because I was using 80-pound leader line dragging baits, and my main line was 30 pounds. So when I get snagged up, guess what's going to break? The main line.
Yep.
And so I was
Every time.
losing like half a spool of line, littering in the lake, and then also having to re-spool almost every trip. So I got the 85-pound braid, which I can still hold more capacity than 30-pound mono. And then I moved down from an 80-pound leader to a 60-pound leader, which is plenty enough. And when I started doing that, every time I hung up, I would pop off at the leader or pop off, somewhere on the leader. And sometimes I would get more back than other times. But I it's not bad. I mean, I don't really have a problem with it. I do like that it has zero memory, so that's pretty cool. Um, but you have less room for error with braid, for sure. If you get a knot in something, or it gets tangled up. You might as well just cut it out like bubble gum in your hair.
Yep.
Just cut it out. Because it's going to cause you more pain trying to get it undone than it's worth.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I'm really looking forward to fishing again. Man, I hadn't been fishing on the boat in the river in a little while. But because I went to New Mexico last weekend, and then this weekend I went camping on that trip. And then this weekend we have the monster hunt, and hopefully by the next weekend I'll have my boat back, and I'll be able to go fishing. But we'll see. But yeah, I'm gonna start fresh 2022, January, maybe even before. But I'm gonna get out there on that river. You're gonna see some overnight camping trip videos on the boat. Um, some catching cooks, things like that. I really want to get into that kind of stuff. And I've actually made another YouTube channel called Camping with Kevin. Uh, I don't know when that's going to take off, but it's something that I really enjoyed this camping trip, Mike. I really did. And it's something that I used to do a lot more of. So there may be another channel coming out. I don't know. We'll see.
I think that those camping channels are very, very popular.
Mm-hmm.
You have some great examples out there. And I'll be honest too, I used to watch quite a few of them. So that way I would get new ideas for my tailgating food
There you go.
at the Iowa Hawkeye football games. I'm like,
Wow.
I got to do something different. I was like, what's going on? What can I do here?
Mm-hmm.
And let's face it, it was pretty easy for me when Luke Nichols is doing catfish and carp, and then next thing you know, he's like, hey, here's some things you can make while camping. And we take an annual Murillo fishing trip, which means we rent cabins because I'm not a tent guy and I'm not a hammock guy, but I'm definitely an air conditioned cabin renter and right there on the lake, But hey, there's a fire pit outside. There's
Mm-hmm.
the grill. You got to do some different things every now and then to
Yeah.
shake it up. And
I see you could have come down because Hills Landing had hotel rooms right there on the water, man.
I didn't know that.
Been right at home. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
But anyway, man, it's been a blast talking about this tonight, and great job coming up with this topic, man. And it's really helped me think about some things that I need to consider for the coming up year as I focus on the river.
Well, it
And
sounds like you've got a lot of things already well in motion. You definitely got the outline all right there. Tremendous opportunity for some great content and some great experiences. And no matter what your channel's called, the journey goes where the journey goes. I mean,
yeah,
and let's face it,
true.
a lot of people are catfishing, and next thing you know, they catch these gigantic, magnificent other species,
Sturgeons or something like that.
sturgeon, carp,
Mhm.
I mean, like you said, you could catch a bull shark for all we know. I mean,
Mm.
I don't recommend that you lip it and get the hook out or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, that's just all exciting stuff.
It's gonna be awesome, man,
A
and
new
I can't
channel.
wait.
You had talked
Yeah,
about it. You had talked
yeah.
about it, and you told me you came up with the name, but I didn't know that you actually had
It's
made it.
made.
So,
It's
all
made.
right.
I just, I'm not gonna release a channel without content on it, so you'll
Absolutely.
see it
Absolutely.
when you get content. But
Absolutely.
everybody, thank you for listening tonight. I hope that you found value from our podcast tonight. If you have any suggestions for future shows, please don't hesitate to email us at palmettocats@gmail.com. Come to YouTube where we broadcast these. We don't broadcast these. We post these videos 3 weeks after they've been live streamed. So if you want to see what it was like to see the taping, if you actually want to see it in action, come on over to YouTube and check those videos out. I think we have 3 or 4 of those episodes up now. It's hard to believe we've been doing this for several weeks. But yeah, as someone in chat saying I look sleepy. Yeah, I've been burning the candle at both ends for about 2 weeks now, and I think it's starting to catch up with me.
We're gonna
But I
let
would,
Kevin get a little rest, and
yeah,
then he's chasing monsters.
yeah,
Then
and
he's
when
on
you're
the
at
monster hunt.
when you're at work all day, you have a lot of time to think about this, and sometimes Mike and I will chat back and forth about these types of things. But your mind races when you should be doing something else sometimes. But that being said, y'all, thank you for being here. Thank you to the Boom Squad again for being here. Great crowd tonight, and those of you on the podcast, thank you for your support as well. Make sure you share it out. Let other people know about it. With that being said, I'm gonna say a prayer and we're gonna get out of here. Heavenly Father, thank you again for another awesome podcast, Lord. I thank you for Michael and all he brings to this team, Lord, and his expertise and Lord, just his candor and the way he thinks about his questions, Lord. I just appreciate him. And I thank you for bringing him into my life. And I thank you for this Boom Squad. And I thank you for all the people listening, Lord, that they would continue to listen and be there to support the channel and the podcast. And give you all the praises for all things. For it's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right, everybody. Until next time, happy fishing.